Project 4, Part A, Image Trace. So far, we've done some drawing in Illustrator using a template and tracing another image. I'm going to show you another way to draw or create vector drawings in Illustrator using photographs. The first thing to do is Command-N New Document, or New Document from the File pull-down. And this will once again be an 8.5 by 11 document, portrait orientation. You won't need a bleed for this part of it, and it can be RGB color. Raster effects, if you end up with any, they could be medium resolution. Create. Once again, I'm using my Essentials Classic workspace. I may add some other palettes later or change to a different workspace, but I think this is a good place to start. Tear off my tool palette. And Command R, I like to see my rulers because then I can grab a guideline. And just like we've done before, I think these are locked. Let's see, unlock guides. Just like we've done before, use my transform here. In my control panel, that's the panel at the top of every Adobe program that changes with whatever tool or palette or object you might have. And I want to make sure that the Y component of this is exactly 1/2 inch. I'll do the same thing on this side here and make sure that the X component is 1/2 inch. I might need to add a palette or something. I'm going to go into here and find my transform palette. So I won't have to keep popping it open from the control panel. Okay, so that one's at 1/2 inch X, one over here at 8 inches X, and one at the bottom probably at 10 3/8. That would give me a 5/8 of an inch margin at the bottom. Now I'll lock my guides. Now, because of what we're going to do with this and the images we're going to start with, these are just outer limits. You may not actually have things going all the way to the margins. It depends on how you choose to arrange things, but this is a good guide to make sure that we don't exceed a comfortable viewing area. I'm going to grab an image from the DL3 images folder, the same images you used on Project 3, and drop it in there. This one's a violin. I already know that I want this thing turned maybe 45 degrees. Snap that to that margin. So I actually am using my margins. I want another one over here. I'm going to need 6 of these. I'm going to hold the Alt key. So I use the Shift key to constrain as I go across. I hold the Alt key, touch that other margin. It kind of snaps to it, and then let go of everything, and I duplicate that violin. Select the 2 of these and hold the Shift key and drag down this way, and hopefully about the middle of the page, hold the Alt key and then release everything, and then Command D to duplicate that one more time. And it looks like those go a little too far because it's based on the white space that I'm not actually using. So I'm going to hold the Shift key and move this up until the top touches the top of the actual images, touches the edge of the page or the artboard. Now, if I ask you to make a drawing of that, you could get your pen tool out or a pencil or a brush and start drawing it, but we're going to do something different. Actually, I've got so much space here. I'm going to delete these and do this one more time, but what I'm going to do this time is I think I can make this bigger. Hold the Shift key to constrain and make a bigger violin here. And move it over here, hold the Alt key. That's about even. Grab the 2 of these and go down to what I hope is about the middle. Somewhere around there. Just make sure I clear the other one so it's not covering it up. Hold the Alt key and release. Command D, duplicate that one more time. And I actually came out right to that bottom guide. I'm just going to select them all by dragging my cursor over them and scoot them up just a little bit more. Okay. Always a good idea to save frequently, so I'm going to Command Shift S. Save as your last name, DL4A, and you'll notice I do this demo a lot. So for this one, I'm going to put in 2020, so I know it's actually 2020 C. C to me means fall semester. You don't have to do that. That's just so I can identify when I did this demo as an AI file. Now what do we do? Well, These are linked images. You'll notice I could embed them. I don't need to. I could edit the original. That would open it in Photoshop. I can do image trace. The image trace by default will make it what we call in the trade line art, meaning there is a line at which every shade of color above that becomes white and every shade below that becomes black. So stuff that is only black or white in the art is referred to as line art in the graphic arts. And if I just do an image trace like that, there you see it as line art. And that looks kind of cool. But what would happen if the line where it became black or white, depending on how dark the image was in a different place? Once I get this started, I can push this button here and get the image trace panel. And I'll leave this open while I'm doing this work. I don't actually need this anymore, so I'll lock this over on the side. So the threshold, the point at which stuff becomes white or black, is at a density level of 128, and that's of course out of your 8-bit color mode. Your maximum number here is 255, 8 bits, the maximum number is 255, 256 possible steps from 0 to 255, and so this is right in the middle at what would be 50% gray or 50% tonal value. So the threshold of 128 means that at approximately 50% density value, whether it's black and white or color, grayscale or color, everything below 128 becomes black and everything above 128 becomes white. If I move this down, you can see I get more highlights in because more of what was a lighter color in the original violin becomes white when I'm starting to lose other details. If I go the other way, actually at about 189, it becomes completely black. So that's a simple black and white conversion. What you're seeing is the tracing result. This is the tracing result with outlines, and it shows you where the vector lines will be that will be converted to. This is the outlines only. This is outlines with the source image, so you can see how that relates to the original image. And this is a source image, and you don't get to see the conversion at all. Usually, you probably want to see the tracing results. You've got a good visual idea of what you're getting, although you may at some times want to see what the actual outlines are going to look like. What I want you to do is explore image trace and try some grayscale. And there are default settings. I'll just hit shades of gray here and see what that looks like. It says I have 154 paths. And again, let's have a look at the tracing result with the source image. You can see a lot of complexity going on in there. If I want less of that, I could go to less and greatly simplify what the image is going to be. There's an advanced setting where I can increase or decrease path accuracy. Stick it out here. And you sort of see some things moving along there. If you look at the head of the violin here, if I'm at 100% as opposed to 1%, a few little changes in here. I'm going to set that to moderately low fidelity. And if I want less corners, that will change the complexity of it. And noise refers to how small a piece of information do you want to include? So if I was to turn this way up, I would lose a lot of detail. And sometimes you want to lose a lot of detail because a lot of detail means that you've got a very complex vector image to deal with. And what we're looking for is something that simplifies pixel-based images into a simple vector drawing. This method, do you want abutting or do you want overlapping? So in this one, it would figure out what shapes it was creating and it would stack them. In this one, they would all be cut and fit together like the background on our project 2B. You can ignore white, which means that this background of this image would disappear. So let's try that. It tells me now I have 59 paths, 580 anchors. If I increase this, that goes to 885 anchors. I'd like fewer anchors, so I'll put it down there. Now I'm at 475, less corners. I don't see a lot of fine detail on this, so I'm not really going to worry a great deal about the noise level. Okay, and let's go back to what my tracing result will look like, and that's it. I'd like you to do at least one black and white one and one grayscale one. Black and white could be something else like silhouette is all black. That's not that interesting. Line art will try to draw it with lines, and depending on the quality and detail of the image, you may get something that's really abstracted like this, or you may get something that looks more useful. I'll change the threshold on this and see it. Okay, so I need, yeah. On this particular, on the violin, I don't think this particular tracing method is going to work that well. Technical drawing, again, not that great on this particular image. Some other image it might be better. Sketched art. Sketched art isn't that much different from the default, which is black and white logo. There's black and white logo, and so that's a lot like what I had before. Or sketched art. Let me just reduce the threshold on that. You could try some different grayscale ones. You could try greatly reducing the number of levels of gray. So let's say this is grayscale, and maybe I want 5 levels of gray. Turn the preview and see what that looks like. Not much different from what I had before. Again, the violin maybe isn't that interesting an image. And you could do some color ones, and let's say default 3 color. That's not bad. You could do 6 color. You could do 16 color. I would avoid the ones that are high fidelity or low fidelity photo, because there you're getting into something that is so complicated where it's trying to duplicate the original tonality of the image that you end up with a file that is actually larger than the original JPEG or pixel-based file. You want to do this for reducing the complexity of something, not making a super large vector-based file that imitates a pixel-based file. The other thing you do with this is you can tell it you don't want 3 colors or 6 colors or 16 colors. Maybe you want 9 colors. So you can pick your own number of color levels. And again, you can change the fidelity of these things based on you want more accurate or less accurate paths. Or the path fitting, higher value means tighter fit. And we'll go for less corners. If I run my noise way up, I can start losing parts of it. So I'm not really sure that I need to do that on this particular image. This one is abutting opposed to overlapping. You do overlapping. And here again is my number of anchors and my number of paths. And ignore white. Okay, so try some of those and come up with 2 that are some form of grayscale, 2 that are some form of line art, and 2 that are some form of color. Now, once you've done those conversions, you can go back and re-edit them, but they are not completely converted to vectors unless you hit expand. And now you see as expand, and this one I did not ignore white, but I can double click on this and go into the group and select this background and take it out. If I take a red square, let me make a red square, and Command Shift open bracket, send that to the rear, you can see that I've completely dropped out that background, and I just have my violin. And this one, if I ignore white and expand, and that eliminates that rectangle that was overlapping. So when you're done, when you've decided that you've made all the adjustments you want to your 6 images, 6 copies of this image, you can Command Y and go into wireframe mode and make sure that all of your images, that's my red square, all of your images are vectors. These that just are a big X, that means this is still a linked file and it's pixel based and it has not done the conversion. If I hit the expand button, it does the conversion. This is another violin demo that I did a few years ago, and you can see that in this one, once I have it in vectors, I can add different fills to the shapes. I could select particular areas. If I wanted to add color to this, I could actually drop swatches of color onto different parts of the violin. And you can see that on this one, I added a gradient to all of those by, let's see, Command Y, okay. I'm going to trace this as 6 color, so I get some fairly large pieces. Expand, and then apply a gradient to all of that. Double click on this, select the background rectangle and delete it. Here's a horn. I kind of like the way this one came out because of the shiny surfaces. It converted better. This looks like it's just a default black and white conversion at a threshold of 128. And of course, you could move that up or down to get different results. This one is a 3 color. This one down here doesn't have anything applied to it yet, I don't think. And it's black and white. And let's try sketched art. You see, sketched art works on something that has some contrast to the image, which you would expect from the metal of the horn. You could try line art. That's a little weird. If I raise the threshold, lower the threshold. Let's see, technical drawing. That doesn't do much for that image either. So it kind of depends on what the nature of the image is. Close that one. This one's an antique camera. Here's a black and white default at 50% or 128 levels of gray. And if I move that up, I can get more detail in it, which might be interesting. I think that's pretty good. This is a grayscale that's been converted. This is a color that has not been converted. That's 30 colors. Put that down to 11 colors and see what it looks like. That's not bad. This one is shown as outlines in the source image. And that again, that's sort of like this one. Let's try technical drawing on that one. Again, I'm not too thrilled with that result. So I would probably do something else or fiddle with the settings and see if I can get something more interesting.